Welcome back to the Motivated Mind Zone. Glad to have you here.
Good to be back.
So, the material we received today, it's a transcript from a motivational podcast,
Right.
and it's aimed squarely at advanced English learners, those really working on that B2 to C1, C2 jump.
That tricky climb to fluency.
Exactly. It focuses on overcoming inertia, embracing that climb toward success. As I understand it, the core argument from the hosts, Kate and Ben, is that persistence, small steps, and seeing failure as just recalculating, well, that these are key.
Key for achieving goals, yeah, whether it's language or life. Okay, let's dive straight into the critique then.
Sounds good.
Kate and Ben, they have this fantastic energy. The metaphors are strong, but for this audience, the ones who already get language learning mechanics,
Yeah?
we need to see how we can elevate this from strong and encouraging to really authoritative, deeply actionable advice.
Absolutely. When you're talking to Me Too C1 learners, they're kind of past the simple rah-rah inspiration. They want specifics.
They do. Which brings us actually right to the first point. To maximize the impact for these technically savvy listeners, the core motivation needs to be explicitly grounded in, well, specific, recognizable language acquisition mechanisms.
Okay, I see where you're going. So the weakness here. The material uses really vivid language. The cold water, the mountain climb, pushing the heavy train.
Yeah, great analogies.
They explain why effort's needed. But the advice itself, start small, don't wait. It's sort of generalized motivational stuff, isn't it?
It is.
And for an audience that understands things like syntax, maybe even phonology, just relying on common life metaphors, it might reduce the perceived authority. Makes it feel less novel.
Precisely. They know they need to push the train. What they're looking for, I think, is the blueprint. How are the tracks actually laid in the brain, especially when they hit that, frustrating high intermediate plateau?
Right.
So the weakness is that reliance on general inspiration instead of leveraging specialized, maybe even evidence-based insight.
Gotcha. So the suggestion?
Integrate the motivational ideas with the concrete stuff, the cognitive, the linguistic realities of advanced English learning.
Uh-huh.
That way, the emotional push feels strategically justified, not just vaguely inspiring.
So adding the why behind the how, I like that. They mentioned starting with just 10 minutes a day, which is practical. How could they reframe that using more technical language?
Well, instead of just saying small pushes build momentum,
Yeah?
connect that 10 minutes directly to concepts they likely know, like spaced repetition or managing cognitive load.
Oh, okay.
Show them why that short, focused 10 minutes might actually be neuroscientifically better than slogging through 4 exhausting hours of study that just leads to burnout.
That's smart. It respects their existing knowledge. They probably do know spaced repetition, so linking a habit to a known technique, it makes the advice feel more professional, tailored.
Exactly. It shows the small push isn't just about willpower, it's about efficiency. It aligns with how the brain handles cognitive load, that limited capacity we have before fatigue kicks in.
Right.
If the hosts just spend a sentence or two on that, they elevate common advice into a specialized strategy. Like explain why 10 minutes reviewing 15 flashcards just before the memory decay curve hits is actually an expert move.
Makes the advice feel much stickier. What about the discomfort of the climb analogy? How could that be more specific?
Same idea. Relate that discomfort not just to, getting out of bed early.
Which is hard, but maybe not the right hard for this context.
Exactly. Link it to the specific friction of moving from B2C1 to near-native fluency. Talk about the struggle with idiomatic language.
Oh yeah, that's real discomfort.
The awkwardness of trying a new phrase like spill the beans and maybe getting it slightly wrong. or the sheer mental drain of producing complex, unscripted discourse.
Like giving a presentation off the cuff?
Right, without falling back on simpler sentence structures. That tells the listener precisely where their discomfort should be focused.
Okay, so it shifts the podcast from general self-help to more like expert coaching on specific language plateaus.
Turns a generic hurdle into a targeted training exercise. You integrate idiom acquisition, cognitive resource management. Suddenly the advice on persistence feels indispensable, not just encouraging.
That definitely elevates it. But, talking about measuring that discomfort and progress, it brings up another potential snag in the material.
How so?
Well, how do we measure effort without falling into that comparison trap they warn against, which I think leads nicely into our second point.
Ah, yes, the comparison paradox. My second point basically addresses that potential contradiction. The material really needs a clearer logical framework.
Okay.
To differentiate between, let's say, productive self-assessment and that destructive external comparison, especially since the hosts do use their own personal comparison stories quite a bit.
Right. The advice to stop comparing, because you see the highlight reel, not the full movie. That's solid advice, really important.
Crucial.
But like you said, they use anecdotes. Kate getting over her podcasting fear, Ben starting fitness. Those are inherently about comparing their present selves to their past selves to show progress.
Exactly. It creates this friction. If all comparison is bad, then how are listeners supposed to track the success of their own small pushes?
Yeah, it leaves a bit of a logical gap. So the suggestion?
Introduce a clear, actionable distinction between, say, internal trajectory measurement and external highlight consumption. This strengthens the whole stay in your own lane idea.
Okay, but comparison can feel so automatic, especially with social media everywhere. How can they make the advice practical against that constant mental check of how am I doing versus them?
That is the challenge. The key is to normalize the internal kind as a necessary tool while really framing the external kind as the dangerous distraction it is.
So when they talk about small wins, like Kate feeling proud, saying, I'm doing it,
They should explicitly label that. Call it trajectory tracking. Frame it as necessary, productive comparison. You measuring your skills today against your skills 3 months ago. That's your roadmap.
so define the running lane metaphor more precisely.
Yes, define the two types explicitly. External comparison, looking at the runner next to you, getting distracted, tripping, toxic.
Right.
Internal comparison, or trajectory tracking, looking back down your own lane at the path you've already covered, seeing how far you've come from your starting line. Motivating.
I think giving listeners a concrete way to do this would be powerful too. Maybe suggest creating actual markers for tracking.
Absolutely. They could suggest something like a progress portfolio. Maybe a learner records a 1-minute talk today,
Uh-huh.
and then 3 months later records the same topic. Comparing those two recordings, not comparing their talk to some native speaker's effortless chat, that's healthy trajectory tracking.
That really clears up the paradox. It defines healthy self-assessment, and it refrains the host's stories too.
How so?
Well, Kate's nervous first episode versus her smoother second one, it becomes just an example of her trajectory tracking. Listeners should see it as a map of effort and endurance, not a benchmark to compare their own day 1 against her day 100.
Exactly. Makes the advice robust, usable. Transforms stop comparing into start comparing strategically.
Excellent. And that kind of structural clarity, thinking about the overall flow, it leads us straight into the final point, doesn't it?
It does. About sustainability.
Yeah, the material talks a lot about perseverance, pushing through, but something feels a bit unbalanced.
I noticed that too. The powerful idea that rest is not the opposite of hard work, it's part of it. It's there, but it comes really late in the structure,
Right near the end.
which sort of diminishes its role. It feels less like a foundational piece for sustained effort and more like an afterthought.
Yeah, the main chunk of the critique is all about the active push. Start now. small steps, fail, recalculate, which is all good stuff.
Very good stuff.
But the point on rest, avoiding guilt, even the sunsets, it feels like a little reminder tacked on at the end, not woven in as a core part of self-discipline.
And that creates a real risk, I think. Listeners, especially motivated ones, might really internalize the keep pushing message.
Without the structural permission to stop?
Exactly. Leading them straight towards burnout, even though rest was mentioned. Just way down the page. It's like a chapter on accelerating with only a tiny footnote about needing breaks.
And in today's world where being busy often feels like being serious, accepting rest as work, that's a huge mental shift.
It is.
That validation needs to land earlier and harder, not just as a gentle closing thought.
Agreed. So the suggestion is really about resequencing. Introduce this idea of cyclical effort and recovery much earlier. Make sustainable pushing a core principle right from the start, not just a burnout prevention tip later on. It's a structural flow improvement.
Okay, so where would it fit best?
I think it needs to come right after the segment on starting small.
Ah, okay.
The flow becomes small push, like the 10 minutes, then immediately talk about scheduled rest recovery, maybe even framing it as active consolidation. Then lead into the small push for the next day.
I like that active consolidation.
Yeah, it frames those small steps, 10 minutes of vocab, 3 dictated sentences, not just as achievable, but as intrinsically linked to a necessary, scheduled rest period.
So the message becomes, the successful advanced learner isn't just the one who starts,
Right.
but the one who actively manages their recovery cycle so they can keep showing up day after day, sustainably.
Precisely. And this tackles that guilt factor they mentioned. If I wasn't busy, I wasn't serious. You need to emphasize celebrating both the small wins and the rest periods as active, essential parts of success, not just passive breaks.
So if failure is recalculating, maybe rest is recharging and encoding.
Yes, linking rest to the actual encoding of new language ties it back beautifully to the authoritative, mechanistic approach we talked about in the first critique.
Because the brain needs that downtime to consolidate space repetition efforts to make sense of complex input.
It absolutely does. By integrating rest early and framing it actively, you establish that true self-discipline isn't about maximizing hours studied, it's about optimizing the cycle of effort and recovery.
Rest stops being an interruption of the process.
And becomes a non-negotiable part of the process. That structural shift makes the whole discipline message much safer, more realistic for the long haul of mastering a language.
It really grounds the idea that discipline isn't just showing up, it's managing your energy so you can keep showing up indefinitely.
And that, right there, is sustainable success.
Okay, so to summarize then, the material has this genuinely motivating message, great host chemistry, really strong bones.
Definitely.
But we see 3 main opportunities to make it even stronger for this advanced audience. First, grounding the advice in specific language learning mechanics, think cognitive load, spaced repetition, to boost authority.
Right. Give them the why.
Second, sharpening that distinction between productive self-assessment, what we call trajectory tracking, and destructive external comparison. Define the terms clearly.
Clarify the paradox.
And finally, integrating rest not as an afterthought, but as a foundational, structural element of sustained effort, ideally coming right after talking about starting small. Frame it actively, maybe as encoding.
Exactly. Add that specific context. Integrate recovery structurally, and it shifts from excellent general motivation to highly authoritative, really actionable advice tailored specifically for advanced learners. It's a fantastic base they've got here.
For sure.
We'd really encourage them to try applying these ideas, defining terms, integrating rest as encoding, making trajectory tracking explicit, and then, send the revised material back for another look when they're ready.
Keep climbing, keep learning, and we'll talk next time on The Critique.